we moved into our studio, and then as time went on over the summer, we just built this out.
We got kicked out of the first floor, and then we moved up here, and then we got kicked out of here.
What do you think about being kicked out?
We all knew it was going to happen at some point. I just don't think any of us expected it to happen so soon. And it's kind of weird because it's always been a place for everyone to go to, and now we're the last ones, and we get to take the stuff and try to move it someplace else.
How about you?
Quickly.
It sucks, but you know, like you said, we knew it was going to happen. And even though it's a pain in the ass to keep building places and tearing it down, each time that we've moved, it's gotten better. So the place we're moving to now, we have a lease, so it's good. It's kind of like transform every year or so.
We haven't really made any of the big, huge art magazines yet, but we've had them visit, which is kind of cool.
It's a pretty cool thing when you can go down 2 floors to see a rock show, or they can come up 2 floors to see art.
It's historical. It's been an art space up here for almost 20 years, so I mean, the history of it in and of itself is cool, yeah.
Hello? Are you downstairs? It's crazy.
Wanting, eating, waiting for you. My love.
I actually built most of this stuff in here.
Good.
But I've been expecting this for quite some time. It's pretty nice to have been there and to know that it's not going to survive without me.
Where's the crowbar?
Oh, you're smacking, darling. Yeah.
I need something bigger. Don't you hate when that happens? Yeah!
all pretty overwhelming. That used to be the prize room for sure.
Keep it nice and orderly.
Stop. Let me just put there. No, let's hope starting to get dangerous.
Where you go near that?
We had a performance floor and an art space floor, so there was stuff going on all the time. It was really good because every time we had a performance down here, it was another audience to see the art, and the same way going back and forth. And we could do a night of performance and film down here and do other stuff up there. We have folders of event programming that never happened. You know, that was all like confirmed or like ready to go. And I think that the hunger and the struggle is what makes it worthwhile in the end. Like, I'm doing this not to make money. I'm doing this because I want to see it happen. I want to see these things happen. We'd find some way to get money, find some way to get to work. Like, we could have 4 events in 1 week, 5 events in 1 week. I think we did one week when we had 6 or 7 events in a row. And we all lived here. Performers. We had Charles Mingus's drummer performed here. Like Walter Perkins, like 80 years old. Comes up the stairs, this frail old man, and everyone went out to get Chinese food. He played with Peter Brotzman, the saxophonist, and he's like, "No, I'm not going down those stairs." And he sat here and just talked to us before there was anyone here, before there was anyone in an audience, and just like amazing stories. And then like I'm like, how is this guy gonna play? Little frail 80-year-old guy hauls behind the drum set, sits down, all of a sudden, and he was all over the place. He was 20 years old again, and like. That was a full house for that. And like, that was probably his last performance in the area. You know, he passed away I think that year. That was amazing to see. It sucks to be at the bottom. Always sucks to be at the bottom. You're always going to get pushed around. But it's not. You can't stop that. That gentrification is always going to continue. It's always going to move.
I think if you're talking like major things, trying major things for the first time, it's been a long time.
Things have always been changing. I mean, since 2000, I've moved 7 times since then. I'm in a house that I've lived in for 2 weeks.
So there's this paradox, because on the one hand you're a creature of habit, and on the other hand, I am very adventurous at the same time.
I definitely am one to purposefully create change in my life and choose change in my life, because I don't want to be stagnant, and when I find myself being stagnant, I do get bored.
I guess, I'm not resistant to change, but also I think it takes me a long time to change things. And, sometimes I need to be forced.
But interestingly enough, nothing really has changed. It's all still the same thing. It's just the way it's presented and the way you handle it.
You want to go across the world to go to the same cafe every day.
Things are necessarily going to have to change, but we're not necessarily going to like that change.
I had that moment of clarity where I said, okay, well, I'm always going to change. Like, I'm going to go through things and I'm just going to change. And, I guess that's just the way I've always been and the way I always will be. Instead of just kind of going for it and getting dirty and staying up all night, now there's 25 emails for one project. And
you go through a time where you don't feel like you're accomplishing very much, but then all of a sudden you come, to a new way of playing, or...
Yeah, I mean, it's the same stuff. It's just that it's different. I grew up a little bit.
You're able to do things that you haven't been able to do before.
I'm at another one of those huge crossroads in my life right now. You would actually be able to clear everything away and see, like, yes, this is the way. I'm hitting a point where I think I should be thinking about it differently.
And you sort of go through periods like that where, you're sort of on a plateau for a long time, and then you just take it to a higher level. I think people learn that way, not just in music, but in other aspects of their life.
Just because people all over the place aren't doing this doesn't mean that it's not possible.
Whether it's a work-related thing or whether it's like art-related, you go through periods where you think you're not learning, and maybe you really are.
They kind of going to yourself rather than anything else. Finding your own way to approach things. The artwork was more about like an individual and an individual trying to find their own way and against insurmountable odds, seemingly, and kind of did that through the metaphor of surfing. So it's all about surfers surfing by themselves, just trying to conquer a wave because they want to try and conquer the wave. And there's no one else really there with them, showing them how or really encouraging them to do it. They just do it by themselves. At that moment for me, I felt overwhelmed by the art world and didn't really feel like being involved with it all that much, and I had to kind of figure out a way to reintroduce myself to that. And it's always going to be that way. I think as now, just looking back on things, I can understand how things were. Like seeing myself in those pictures from 2000, where I was just like a goofy kid and didn't know what was going on at all, and just being a part and caught up in it, and then seeing myself again in 2005, where I'm a bit older, somewhat more jaded, but also learned a lot along the way.
I kind of started as a performance artist, just in spoken word. So the spoken word was like a combination of performance art. So I did fashion terrorism was one of them. This is 1999 I did this, so this is before terrorism was a bad word. It was very funny. It was all about like essentially upsetting the norm through what you wore. I did my human, dogs, and sex one. I was talking about humans, dogs, and sex. I had a little slideshow, and I did other various spoken word pieces. It was like, I think this is called The Secrets of Sex. I think that's really what it was. It was very controversial. There were upset people in the audience who thought what I was saying was like, how dare I like just make these bold accusations that are so broad and specific all at once. And
I think the thing that I figured out is that you're gonna, when you present work that's challenging, there will always be people who hate it and get confused and get scared of it, and there'll always be people who will love it, no matter what age they are and whatever. And it's great because that's just a sign to me that it's always going to be the same. That, you know, challenging work is challenging work, or inaccessible work is always going to be inaccessible work no matter where you do it. So it's actually a huge motivation to want to do things for 25 people or for 10,000 people.
I did the story of how Jesus was into health. He was like a health fanatic.
Our audience is, you know, is an ever-changing group of people every single night, which is incredible to me, like watching that group of people that I'm actually in contact with and having sort of like a weird mini meta kind of dialogue with. And that's a really interesting art. I mean, that brings up huge questions about how technology is changing music and vice versa. Very interesting.
At this point, now that I've been baton twirling for almost 9 years, I've gotten to a point where I'm like tired of it, and I just don't care that much anymore about it. But people put me into a box of entertainment, and I actually let myself be in that box. And during the performance is the most often when I have the breakthrough moments.
People tend to go through like phases where, you know, maybe they become disinterested in things because they feel like they're not really growing.
It's kind of affirming to know that, to have something happen, you're like, I want to do this forever.
In the process of going through the whole thing with Oni, and I had to kind of figure out how I make my own art. And also in the meantime, I've decided to play drums. And it's not like I've given up on visual arts, but I'll go back to it, I'm sure. I always do.
The excitement of the rush does fade, like the desire to impress, and especially because I've had so many great moments.
The end result is still exactly the same. It's wanting to be part of creating something awesome, something spectacular, something that can be potentially life-changing for someone.
You know, I'd like to do something a little bit more meaningful and, you know, maybe important.
Like, no, just push a little. Just every day. Just come on. Just try.
It's fine for a while, but, you know, it's not something you want to devote your life to.
What's changed is my ability to realize the visions that I have a little bit more efficiently. But it's still the same thing. I still, you know, freak out every time something goes great, and I still freak out when it goes bad, and nothing's changed.
I tend to adapt pretty easily, and I mean, the lifestyle that I lead in general requires me to be adaptable.
I think change is awesome as a way to, like, you know, stir up the dust, you know? It's really awesome all of a sudden when you do that, because your whole environment is new. even though it's the same.
It's great in the fact that we're all getting older and time is passing, and I think everybody's coming into their own right. So the things that we wanted to do back then, but really didn't know how to, now we can do. But we still have the same desire to want to have it just be crazy and awesome.
You're gonna kill almost half the things you grow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a part of growing stuff. Stuff will die. And you get used to it and you're like, okay, I'm learning. There's no way you can control it. You just must obey. It's crazy, there's no way.
People learn in all sorts of different ways, and
One of the scariest things about change, when you are in your life and you have a bunch of decisions and things aren't clear, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could go here, and everything is laid out. There's this part of you that always wants to feel like there's actually an answer. And you just need to constantly look at your path as it is right in front of you, pick a route and go. And I think the most ideal way to exist in life is to actually really know that that isn't true. And to really know that all a set of choices is a set of choices. And that they aren't graded in different ways. And that there isn't choice one which is good and choice two which is bad. It's really just pick one and you go. And you don't spend a lot of time pining and regretting about what you could have done. It's just a waste of energy. You'll never know.
If you don't put so much of an urgency on it, there's no reason to rush. There's no reason to get it all done now.
There's 10 answers to that question.
I guess that sort of complicates things.
Yeah, it's it's the secret language of nature. And if you can learn it, then you can make stuff grow. And you don't even know how to explain it.
And it grows exponentially. Our audience has grown exponentially. And I also have an audience. It's not tangible. I have an online audience.
Again, back to technology being so disappointing all of a sudden and very saddening. All those years, I bought new Macintoshes. Kept wanting to have the thing that did the thing that I always knew that it would do. And I always knew that was the future. But then now that I'm at the future, now I'm a Luddite of the computer world, technological world. I'm the person who won't update to System 10. I reached the point that I was looking forward to all these years, and now I'm surpassed. And it's I was on the internet. It's I want to be on the internet, but now the internet has surpassed me. All of these things, and now I need a new computer. Because I had a fanzine actually in high school, which you made fun of Xerox.
Sure.
Which means nothing today. Of course, but back then it was that was the small man's printing press, and it's now with the age of blogs, it's zines mean nothing today in the age of blogs.
And I mean, I never felt totally connected to the communities that we were in. I always felt like we were outsiders. The corner on which both buildings were on were the grossest, scariest places ever. And now both of those blocks are clean and safe and weird, and nothing happens. And
I live in the smallest apartment I've ever lived in my life. Actually, the first time I've lived in such a small space, and having to readapt to that and get rid of a bunch of possessions definitely makes you change your priorities and think about, do I need all this stuff? Why do I have all this stuff?
doing it. I mean, you have that thing that happens as you get older, and you're comparing yourself, or you're judging yourself based on your siblings or other people you went to school with, and you say, I still rent an apartment. I'm always broke. This is tough. I don't have health insurance, but it's great. It's awesome, and you know, and then you have those moments where you go, I have the coolest job in the world. Why, you know, why am I complaining?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about being an artist as well is that you know, it's not like you're part of a company where you've got a role and a job and it's very specific and there's a very specific endpoint and set of goals and like you need to make your fucking annual numbers. It's not like that. You really are just called upon to make random fucking choices.
I still haven't given up on any dreams. I've always thought, like I see how much my friends work whenever they have a big show coming up, and I remember those moments and that adrenaline rush, and you know, the moments before a show where you're still trying to get everything together. And is the paint going to be dry before the people walk through the door? Probably not, you know. And I can do that when I want to, but I'll deal with that on my own terms.
Decisions that I make really are my own. They're not based on, you know, what everyone else is doing or what everyone thinks, or so, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, pander to other people, and I'm not really worried about what they're thinking about, you know, like I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do.
Once you start talking to people about change, you're basically just talking about like the essence of what they believe. If I had to distill my entire life's philosophy about this or anything else, I can't look at anything negative or positive at all. It just is, and you know, and you take it as it comes.
Yeah.
This is the whole idea of what it means to be you, in the terms of what you do as an artist. You're right. When you're 15 years old, you spend a lot of time fantasizing about what your life is going to be like. But as you get older, you realize that it's not going to be like that all the time. And I also, getting older and knowing that for me has been a really great thing.
I think that there definitely are events. There's always your little incremental changes, but there are also your events that are like a little bit bigger. You know, that increment might be a bigger move or a bigger change, and there's definitely been a lot of those moments.
You know, it's like when you see friends not go through changes sometimes, like, or they go through changes that are ever deepening worse. That can be very disturbing, and because you have to essentially disassociate yourself with those people, because if they get to a point where you can no longer relate with them, then you have to, because it's just not going to be healthy. Whereas when you see friends doing a little better, and then there's always the struggle. I mean, because we can be our healthy selves and or our unhealthy selves at any moment, you know. It's like if you see people on like constant progress, like whatever their lulls might be, that's exciting, and the friendship is always rewarding, I believe, because they're just trying to live as opposed to not live. I hate to see my friends retard, meaning go backwards. And it's horrifying. And I just can't handle it sometimes.
Because we are in a huge global community, at least this country, that feels so stuck that to see something, anything happening, no matter how fucked up and tragic it is, it moves something in you that goes like, oh yes, like this is gonna change things. Things need to be changed.
Because I adamantly, as much as I'm like fuck up beyond belief in my own perfectionistic point of view of myself, I'm always trying to like go forward.
And you know, you realize just like how completely like fleeting and random life is in general. It's amazing.
A lot of people tend not to be that observant, and so I think it's sort of too early to, you know, even think about looking back. I think sometimes it takes like a major shift in their everyday life for them to be able to recognize something.